Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Shred and Soul.
I'm Shred, aka Kevin Wood.
And I'm Soul, aka Wind Hughes. Well, as often is the case, we'll tell you that we have an idea for an episode that arrived during a coffee conversation in the morning, and this one did as well. We're going to talk to you about Plato's philosophy of the Philosopher King, and what are the qualities of an enlightened ruler, and how does that pertain to the world we have today? How do you cultivate an enlightened ruler? How do you select an enlightened ruler? And what the heck does that even mean in today's world compared to what we have now? But what happened was we were having coffee, and I was talking about how the night before I was just enraged by some things that I heard in a political speech. And it threw me back to a place and time many, many years ago when I became familiar with Plato and his ideas of the Philosopher King, and I truly believed that the qualities he describes and how he speaks about a Philosopher King was something that was essential for us to have an aware, awakened, loving world. And so it threw me back to that, and that made me I had a conversation with Kevin about it because I was really upset the next morning. Not upset, but it was living in me, this sense of, why don't we have a Philosopher King? I don't want my ruler to sound like what I just heard. And it was just a couple of lines in the speech. Everything else was fine. But it prompted this. So we decided over coffee we would talk about this because we talked about it in coffee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've always been interested in that idea, but this is going to be a deeper dive into it. The idea that we need a leader who's a Philosopher King that's kind of appointed. And maybe you could go through some of the steps that Plato
we will.
Outlined for that selection.
Yeah. He was alive in about 428 to 348, so he basically was in his 80s when he passed. He was in Greek, one of the huge philosophers of the time, Grecian philosopher, and he was really influential in the development of the philosophies in Western history. He was a student of Socrates, which probably most of you have heard of, and a teacher of Aristotle. So he lived between, and related to both Socrates as his teacher and Aristotle, which you've heard of, as his student. So he founded the Academy in Athens, the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. He's really famous through his dialectic style, his dialogues and discussions. He explored profound ideas on justice, knowledge, reality, and the ideal state, meaning the utopian state, and what higher principles that would be based on. His most notable work, which was the first work that I discovered him in, is called The Republic, where he presented the theories of forms in the allegory of the cave, which you may have heard of, and if not, you want to go search that, the allegories of the cave. He had a vision of the Philosopher King ruling a just society. His philosophy emphasized reason, ethics, the pursuit of truth, spiritual and enlightened truth, shaping Western thought for over 2 millennia. So that's who Plato is, and this is the book that I found him in. It's called The Republic, and it's discussions between Socrates and Plato, and it's just an amazing book. I discovered this in 1973, so it was very important to me and really a foundational piece in how I viewed what was possible in the world based on higher truths and what was possible in politics. So that being said, how about I read the qualities? I go from there, yeah?
Yeah, sounds good.
You want to pick up after that?
Okay.
Okay, so here are some... I wanted to read from this book, but all I can tell you is I can't even read that font, even with my glasses. It is so tiny, it's tinier than an ant. So I guess I had good eyes in 1973.
Yeah, you need to get the senior version.
I need to get the large print version so I can read it again. So I printed out some of the things so I could summarize it and then read you from him directly. So, glasses even for this. The the qualities of a philosopher king or a philosopher ruler are the knowledge of forms, the grasp of eternal realities like the good, justice, beauty. These are essential aspects of his experience, her experience. Good, justice, and beauty. Virtuous character, temperate, just, courageous, truthful with a sharp memory and self-control. No lust for power. Rules out of duty, not ambition. They'd rather study than govern. Moral and intellectual purity, free from greed, fear, or corruption. Only they can prioritize the city's real good. Rigorous education, decades of math, dialectics, and practical trials to qualify, starting young, and only able to rule once they turn 50. Selfless guardian, lives simply, shares everything, protects the whole state like it's their family. And Plato truly believed that only people who had these qualities could be a just, proper ruler, not led by power and greed.
Few and far between, I would imagine.
Yeah. And then the early childhood preparation for this. So basically what happens is, it's like we start, this is an ideal he presents. We start when they're already aware, awakened people, and they start to train children. So it shows the importance of teaching our children how to become these virtuous, aware, awakened people. And this program takes them from an early age up until their adulthood, and those who have turned 50 might be the pool that they select the next
Seems
ruler.
like you would need a philosopher king in place before you could set up that kind of a program, right?
One of the frustrations with Plato is he talks about the ideal, and then you say, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Right.
Well, how can you create this program and teach these youngins, to pick a ruler from, he calls them the foundation and the guardians? You would have to hope that some of them were aware and enlightened, and to begin with.
Maybe Plato was alluding to the gods, and back then maybe they were more of a concrete reality in people's lives.
I think so.
I don't know. I was just throwing that out there.
No, I actually went into AI with that today to compare the history and timelines of the Anunnaki and the descendants and the hybrids created, and how that may have unfolded, and how potentially people like this, Plato's and those like that, could have been descendants. But we won't go there now.
Yeah.
That's a long dive.
For another episode.
Yeah. Okay, so here are the here's how the training goes. Youth athletics and morals. That's birth. No, excuse me. Let me start again. Early childhood, birth to 18, raised with music, poetry, gymnastics, building harmony, courage, self-control, no luxury, no fear-mongering tales. So think about how that would be if in our education, birth to 18.
I wouldn't have made it that far.
You wouldn't have? I mean, think about that. Poetry, music, building harmony, courage, no luxury, and no fear-mongering tales. And that's sort of like making sure what they hear and what they learn is not about fear-mongering. We have so much of that today. Right? So that's 0 to 18. 18 to 20, that's called their youth training. It's morals. Intense physical training, military drills. They test grit, obedience, and justice in action. I love that. Justice in action. And then from 20 to 30, they build upon arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, harmonics, sharpening the mind, and lifting their interests and knowledge towards eternal higher truths. Dialectic mastery is 30 to 35. Pure reasoning, questioning assumptions. Talk about critical thinking. Learns to argue towards the forms, remember, which were beauty and goodness, and learns to argue towards the forms and spot contradictions. Real-world trials, 35 to 50. Hands-on jobs, military command, administration, public service, proves they can handle power without corruption. Imagine If that was a requirement for a leader, proving that you can handle power without corruption. What a concept, huh?
Yeah, I know.
And that's 30 to 50. And then finally at 50, they're back to the pure study of the good, the philosophy, beauty, justice, those values. Back to the study of the good, and then they rule reluctantly for the city's sake. And you were talking about that, this concept that they pick rulers who don't want to be rulers.
That's right. The unwilling are the best rulers, is what Plato said. And that alone would rule out people doing it for their own ego gratification or their power, lust for money. So, yeah, something to think about anyway.
Yeah.
I can't think of one ruler ever that I've been in contact with or knew about that was unwilling.
Yeah. So it's basically saying that the person who doesn't want the job is the right person. And if they have these qualities, not just they don't want the job, they have to have the qualities that we've talked about and be trained from 0 to 50 to be this aware and awake human, then they wouldn't be someone who wanted the position.
Yeah. You think about it, why would anybody want to be the vice president? Because there's a good chance you might end up being president. Not like a great chance, but you couldn't, like I'm thinking of LBJ. Was he unwilling? No, he was right there ready to go.
Well, you wouldn't be a VP if you were unwilling.
That's right.
Right? I think whatever qualities moves a VP candidate moves the presidential candidate.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of personality, whether they can do it. But regressing, here we go. So think about that. All of this training that's required, that there's a sense of inner moral development, the ability to access higher dimensions, higher truths, based not on greed and power and political gain, based on virtue, and the ability then to lead a country, a city, a world through virtuous, aware, and awakened understandings. So it's utopian in its true nature. I mean, it's absolutely utopian. Anything else? What they were looking for is they were searching kids, and he talks about this very specifically in the book, with sharp minds, good memory, balanced temperament, looking for these qualities and cultivating them the best they could. So one of the things I wanted to read, which is directly out of the book that I had to have enlarged in font because I couldn't read it. This is his direct quote. Until philosophers are kings, or the kings and princes of the world have the spirit and power of philosophy, and political greatness and wisdom meet in one. Political greatness and wisdom meet in one. Cities will never have rest from their evils. Now imagine this is written in the 400s. The philosophical nature is ever enamored of the kind of knowledge which reveals to them something that of essence which is eternal and is not wandering between the two poles of generation and decay, like the issues between life and death, what we do between those 2 points. They're not motivated by that. Their desire is for the whole of it. They do not willingly renounce a small or great part. They love truth, hatred of falsehood, in any form. Really? Think that applies today?
Hatred
of falsehood in any form. From childhood, a striver after truth in every form. These are Plato's words. He whose desires are drawn towards knowledge will hardly feel bodily pleasure, if he be a true philosopher. So they're not motivated by the senses of the bodily nature. They're motivated by higher things. Such a one is sure to be temperate and reverse of covetous. So they don't want to covet anything. Nothing can be more antagonistic than the meanness to a soul which is ever longing after the whole of things. Can such one account death fearful? A cowardly and a liberal spirit could have no part in genuine philosophy. So a philosopher can't fear death. Just and gentle from youth up, nothing cowardly. Good memory, not steeped in oblivion. Graceful and proportionate minds that match truth. It's so ideal. It's so beautiful. Courage, grandeur of soul, aptness to learn, memory, all in one package. A sound and just character which is accompanied by temperance. Imagine that.
Yeah, it's a tall order, I'll tell you.
Yeah. A sound and just character accompanied by temperance. What is temperance? It's balance. It's not acting precipitously. It's, temperance is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, how that just doesn't seem like it's possible. I mean, the world and the way it's put together and the way we're put together, we're so flawed.
Yeah.
What happens when one of these philosopher kings fails to meet those expectations? Things change. All of a sudden, your philosopher king goes haywire and starts acting out of character for what we have established for our philosopher king. How do we deal with that?
Well, I think that's a point. You and I talked about that because this is utopian. And I was telling Kevin there was a period around this period or shortly thereafter where I just read every book I possibly could on utopia. Utopian values, utopian ideas, novels, philosophers. Like, what is utopian? Is it possible? And I think this exists in that category. Are utopian ideals actually possible? Plato addresses that.
Well, yeah, he also addresses the stages of decline, too. Things to watch out for, say you're a philosopher king, or maybe you don't have a philosopher king. I mean, these kind of things happen no matter what. Democracy, right? Step by step. One of the steps. Honor, loving warriors rule, pride replaces wisdom.
Wait a minute. These are the steps that we go through in decline.
Right.
Because basically, can I just say this before we do that? Basically, one of the premise, which I find fascinating of Plato, is that he truly sees that humans, as we are possibly not capable of maintaining this.
Right.
And that there will be a fall because all things in this level of consciousness and dimension, life, death, we're in polarity, all things will fall away. And this is how he describes that fall, right?
And things are always moving and changing. Paradigms shift too. The way we see the world, the way we see our universe, our belief systems change constantly. So you can expect things to slough away and need to be recreated.
So this is the order that he describes. If we're observing the downfall, we'll see it in this order?
Yeah.
Okay.
So then you have oligarchy. And oligarchy occurs with rich misers grab control of the money. Money trumps over poor, getting the poor getting squeezed, basically. Then democracy, right? Democracy was one of the signs that Plato saw as an indicator that things were going haywire. Democracy, he explains it as excess freedom. Lets every desire run wild. No hierarchy, just chaos. Unfit leaders thrive. Moderation dies. I think what we're seeing now in our democracy mirrors that.
Well, isn't that, we talked about that briefly, which was, is democracy as is meant to be even possible now? And he's basically saying, no, that in the state of the world as it is, we need enlightened leaders to lead and then teach our population and our children how to become that as well. But until then, we have to have an enlightened leader leading with all those qualities.
I wonder if Plato took some heat for that because, ancient Greece was the birthplace of democracy as far as I've ever been told. And
maybe that's why he said this. Maybe he saw that.
Maybe he saw
the corruption in the democracy.
And I can see that, how democracies can be skewed. You see that with media, propaganda, all kinds of ways that you can be swayed to believe one way or another, and losing track of maybe what Plato's talking about, a higher vision of reality.
So
the last
I'm looking at what comes next.
Tyranny.
Tyranny.
Yeah. A champion rises from the mob, promising protection, ends up enslaving everyone with lawless lusts. So, I can see how that happens. You look at some of the countries that still have dictators, right? A dictator would follow that pattern Absolutely. Some of these corrupt dictators that we've seen, like who was that guy in Cuba? Castro. And maybe some of the African, Idi Amin,
Well, I think that when you look at
Hitler.
what he says are the reversals, they look like that.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things he says is, looking into what it would take to reverse this, and even if it's possible, he basically, again, says that humanity, he calls us too messy, and that if an intervention occurs, it might work, but this is what would be required.
Well, the natural reversal cannot be done because of the cycle. Aristocracy, democracy, oligarchy, democracy, and tyranny is a one-way downhill journey. Human flaws like bad breeding, greed, and sense errors make it irreversible without massive outside source. Nothing bounces back on its own. Intervention's only possible via a philosopher tyrant. So you take your philosopher king, who's gone haywire, needs to be replaced, and the philosopher tyrant can get the job done by taking him out.
Well, it's and it's looking at it's a pretty doom and gloom sort of scenario, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the intervention will happen when basically a couple of things can happen. One is he says that a tyrant ruler could awaken and suddenly have an epiphany and become a philosopher king while serving and reigning. And if that happens, then there's a chance that that same ruler could turn things around. But what would be necessary and or happen would be that they would have to purge old influences, strict lifelong education from childhood, no shortcuts, communal living, no property or family to kill corruption, rulers who hate power but take it for duty, basically recreate the guardian class from scratch. It's basically saying that, like other regimes have actually done, you wipe out all of the adults. Mm-hmm. He talks about not wiping them out, but sending them somewhere. He says take them somewhere. Mm-hmm. It's like send them all off to the happy farm. And then you take all of their children and you raise them and retrain them to become another philosophical aware generation. And then those children potentially could be responsible for the reset. He says it would take divine intervention or perfect timing. Humans alone will screw it up. It's a one-shot miracle, not repeatable. So basically imagine what he's saying is necessary to make the change. He, So it's just hard. I don't want to get into this rabbit hole as another time, but one of the things we did was we pulled up, how do you compare the descriptions of the philosopher, king / ruler to the qualities we see in worldwide leaders today? And how about I'll read this and you read that? Okay. These are the qualities of the philosopher ruler, summarized. Loves wisdom, seeks eternal truth, not opinions or power. Virtuous temperament, just courageous, no greed, no ambition. Reluctant ruler, governs from duty, hates the throne. Trained decades in math, dialectics, real trials, selfless, and communal life. And what they say we have today?
Power hungry, campaign driven, ambition first, truth optional. Few show deep philosophical training or disinterest in office. Often tied to money, donors, fame, greed, corruption, scandals. Common, not the pure guardian vibe. No lifelong virtue, education, elections favor charisma, polls, not wisdom or self-control. I think that's, many polarize personal legacy or party over the real good. So I think we see that at all levels of government these days.
Well,
I hate to be pessimistic or, negative about it, but it seems like that's the case.
I I I've known individuals that I thought would make amazing philosopher kings, or known them or known of them. When I apply this to the leaders in my lifetime that I've seen at all levels of politics, I haven't seen one. The closest, and it's interesting because he was deemed a poor president, was Jimmy Carter. And I think one of the reasons why he was seen that way is he truly was a philosopher king. He really led with a lot of spiritual beliefs and morals and values. He was a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Did that apply to the current world political situation? Probably not well, and that's why they called him a bad president. But I liked him. I don't know.
Well, his legacy was that he didn't get the hostages out of Iran. And although his team was working on it, it happened that our next guy took credit for it. But, he was a good guy and his heart was in the right place.
So maybe a philosopher king to me, or a mini. I don't really think there has been one. Do I think it's possible? Yes, but I don't necessarily. As we said, it's the chicken or the egg. I don't feel that at this point we have a council, a federation, a foundation of guardians and teachers who can raise and create this. But there are a lot of interesting, I think, ideas when you start studying Utopia and what's possible. And I wanted to suggest 2 books that I read during this time that I love. There are many of them, but to not bore you with the list, one of them was Thomas More's, written in 1516, Thomas More's book called Utopia. It's a novel about an island society and what happens to them and whether they create and can create and what the structural aspects of Utopia would be. It's really good. The other one I love is Aldous Huxley, a teacher whom I've studied greatly, and his book novel called Island. Really a fun read. And it's a very positive place where science and spirituality merge and all things are taken care of and people are very happy. And the ravens or the crows, can't remember which one, fly around this island saying, attention, attention, reminding them to be still, as in meditation, to remember who they are. I loved that book. So Thomas More's Utopia and Aldous Huxley's Island are really, really good books talking about Utopia. Besides Plato's Republic. Again, Plato lived in 428 to about 348, and it's an amazing, I need the larger print, an amazing book that I'd love to reread. It changed my life. What do you think, in closing, about the possibility?
I think it's a great idea, and I've, thought about it many times, and I've seen how current systems just don't seem to work. They don't work for me. They will probably work for other people, but you have countries all over the world with various ways of ruling, and you have strong arm leaders, dictators, and then you have democracies, you have communist societies, you have more socialist societies. I don't think anyone's really happy with any of it. And because the human element is going to get involved, where that human element has so many temptations. And this philosopher king, if he ever did exist or would exist or can exist, would be definitely the right guy for the job, or woman, who knows. But
do you think it's possible to create, in this world as is, to actually, think of the Dalai Lama. They chose the Dalai Lama because he was pointed out, and as a child they went and found him and believed he was the incarnation of the previous Dalai Lama. But they took him away from his family. It's a great movie. I can't remember what it's called. It's a great book, a great movie. And they take him away and train him. And you can see the result.
Yeah, I don't know that he'd be fit to be the philosopher king, though.
But what training from a young age with a specific goal
See, that's the problem, because who's going to train them?
Yeah.
And we have people who think that they're teaching our kids good things, and it turns out maybe they're not. I don't think in an evolutionary timeline, we're there yet to really trust that anybody could take control of this, teach a philosopher king or a group of kids and single out the one that's going to be the philosopher king. I don't think that's possible right now.
What I feel is possible, and maybe the only way this could survive and work, is a mass event, an intervention that occurs in the consciousness of humanity, whether enough people reach that tipping point, that then collectively there's enough change and enough people out of that become the foundation and the guardians that then begin to teach people how to be different and to teach how to become an awakened, knowledgeable, just philosopher king in training. And then 50 years down the road we'll have that, or our friends from out there in other dimensions and planets actually do arrive as prophesized and help us and intervene.
Yeah.
That's what I think it would take.
I think that's probably what it would take. And it's actually, when you put it that way, it is entirely possible. To be open to guidance from other realms that are working for us and protecting us, to listen to that. Who knows, maybe we're talking about a philosopher king that maybe he or she does not exist in the physical plane.
It could be. And that's a point too, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, I often think of Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, people from that period. There is a shift and a change intellectually and in terms of consciousness then. And you can look at, trace in the timeline when supposed interventions occurred. And so one of the things I want to do is map that out as to when these interventions from higher beings supposedly occurred, and lay it over the map and timeline of culture and evolution, and see what it was. But people of this era and this location certainly saw things in a different way.
Yeah, they certainly did.
Yeah.
But it's not to say they were all that much removed from the human experience. I mean, things change, ideas change, the way we view things change, our belief systems change, but the core challenge of being a human being in this plane, I think, has, for the most part, remained the same. It's just how much of it exists and how much of it can we overcome as we proceed along in this shared experience.
Well, there you go. Well, in that shared experience, we hope you enjoyed sharing this with us. And there's so much more. Already I can see we're over what we designated for this, so we didn't, have you sit here in a philosophy class. But there's so much to say and so many places we could go with this that we talked about. But education, as he says, is so essential. Had I not been in college and read this book, I would not have had some major, we read Aristotle and Descartes and other philosophers too, but I would not have had a major shift, because I was a kid growing up in Brooklyn. I was not exposed to people who thought this way. And so it was other than the 60s, you're exposed to philosophers, and the awarenesses and teachings of that period is part of what steered me. And spiritual experiences I had in my teens steered me to how other people spoke of these things. And that's where the philosophers came in. But education's important. So I encourage you to dive in. Dive in. Don't listen to me or Kevin or anyone else. Dive in and have fun doing it into, what is a utopia? What is awakening? What is possible? What do other people who were awakened, in a sense, say about it?
And by all means, do your own thing.
Yeah. Well, here's to our thing. Here you go. Here's to Plato.
Thanks to you guys.
Yes. We'll see you next time.
Hit subscribe or like, or if you're not a Google fanatic, a fan, just listen to the episodes. We have our Shred and Bowl available on Bandcamp, Shred and Soul at bandcamp.com.
Shred and Soul is the band. Shred and Bowl is the album. It's available now.
It's available. And we're going to do more of that. And I can't wait to talk to you again next time. Oh, I did want to mention we're going to be offering our podcast on various streaming services soon. We're going to be available on Spotify and other platforms.
We're doing that right now.
That are not in the visual realm.
So, the audio.
So great things are happening, big things, and we'd like to thank you guys for helping us along.
Your support has helped a lot, and we need more support. I'm about to do a GoFundMe so we can get better equipment, though we did just get some new equipment for some of our recordings and upgrading and constantly improving.
The telethon, the Jerry Lewis telethon?
I love those.
Maybe we should do an episode that lasts like 48 hours straight.
I mean, a reality, they come in and they sit with us at breakfast and lunch.
Yeah, we'll run it live. Maybe we'll have musical guests.
To raise money?
Come into the house here and...
I think these days it's called a GoFundMe.
Oh, okay. I thought the telethon was a good...
it would be fun, entertaining.
Yeah.
Crazy idea.
Just a stupid idea.
No, but it's actually interesting and intriguing. So there you go. Please help and support us. We do want to grow and change. We have more people we've invited to be guests. So there's a lot we can do that we want to do. And so if you don't have a Google account, just sign up and get a Google account so that you can access so many things on YouTube. Like, for example, you'd be able to subscribe to our channel. You would be able to like us and comment and view things that non-Google people can't do.
You can even start your own show.
You can start your own podcast. All right. We'll see you next time.
Okay, bye.
Bye.